Welcome to the Divorce Remix Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to Divorce Remix the podcast. If you are new, thank you for joining me for this episode. If you are a continued listener, welcome back. My name is April Nowlin. I am a divorce recovery coach and a dating coach. I'm like, I know what I do. I'm pretty sure I know what I do. But in essence, you guys, I help ambitious professional women to create a life they love after heartbreak. I say this all the time. Divorce is a death, but it's not a death sentence. And so my goal of this podcast is to have those experts who have walked in your shoes, who know what it's like to recover from hard things, to give tips and tricks and tools and those things that we need to make sure we're creating a life that we love after heartbreak. So my guest today, I'm super excited about. I met her a few years ago through church, and I just loved her spirit, loved her voice, but just loved everything about her. And so when I found out what she did like 6 months ago, I was like, I gotta have you on the podcast. So welcome to the podcast, Leah Stevenson.
Thank you. Thank you, April, for having me. I'm like very excited. Just the way that we crossed paths, I know it was just God because it was just very timely. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast.
Thanks for being here. So the reason why I have Leah tonight, one of the things that I like to do is talk about topics that we really don't, I think, delve into as much as women, as moms, as just people. And so Leah is a grief coach, and you guys may be like, "What in the world is that?" Grief is something that I think we've all experienced. And depending upon your level of grief, what caused that grief, you may have gotten professional help. You may have, gotten over it. You may have sought spiritual help. We turn to a lot of different things when we're hurting and when we're going through things in life. But I really wanted to have Leah on because I was like, what is a grief coach? What do you do? How do you help people? And for those of you out there who are asking those same questions, we're going to answer them on this podcast. So, Leah, I just want to start with, what is a grief coach?
So, coaching all around can be different for different coaches, especially how they specialize in whatever there's coaching for. So for me, I believe that grief is love that is expressed but has nowhere to go. So through grief coaching, you'll be able to I'll be able to help you navigate through what we call like waves of grief. So like sadness, um depression, grief, I mean just different types of grief that you feel within and you can't necessarily, I guess, follow or kind of like cope with. And so I basically kind of help you navigate towards finding tools through self discovery. I can help you find the different passions after death. There's basically two types of grief. Well, not two types, but the majority of the two griefs are anticipatory grief, which is the grief of, um, I guess you could say, things that didn't happen. Like you're very upset about plans that you had. And a lot of caregivers kind of go through this type of grief. And then, of course, you have like sudden grief with death of a loved one. And so navigating towards denial, shock, all of those types of things within the grief, I can kind of help you just with the acceptance part, with the processing part.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When you said, the waves of grief,
Mhm.
anyone who has experienced grief, the way that I describe it a lot of times is almost like being on this roller coaster that you didn't ask to be on, and you just kind of get put on it out of the
Yeah.
blue, right? So it's like 1 minute I'm totally fine. The next minute, I've got like this, little roller coaster
Mhm.
of emotions and things hitting me. And it's like, where's this coming from? Or what do I do with it? And
Mhm.
so I love the way you described the most common types of grief. Those were very new to me. I had never heard of them being, told in that way. So
Yeah.
how did or why did you, because this is an area that I don't know many people that are like, I want to help people that are grieving, right?
Yeah.
What made you decide to be a grief coach?
Um, at first it didn't start off like that. When I call it my Job year, where we know the Bible, the story of Job, where he basically lost everything. And so 2016 was that for me. I didn't wasn't poor or anything, but I had at the time I was married, and I went through the beginning of the year, I went through a miscarriage. And then 3 months after that, I found out that my mom had stage 4 cancer. And so just dealing with the process of that, dealing with my marriage, in a new marriage, I was only married for 3 years. So we had our own things that we were trying to navigate. Plus, we were trying to like navigate the grief of a child, which we didn't really know what that was. And then just all of that made me feel so overwhelmed, especially with um, the death of my mother 2 months after knowing that she was diagnosed. And so, me and my mom, we were like ace boom coon, like best friends, like everything. And so for her to die and then suddenly, and then a couple of months after that, trying to navigate my marriage, not really, I'm just like stuck into this ball of grief and not really knowing what that was at an age of 28. And so I just didn't have like friends that were going through the same thing. I didn't mentally feel like I could express it in a way to my friends for them to really understand. The pride comes in where you're like, oh, I don't want anybody to know that I'm hurting, or you're embarrassed because your marriage is falling apart. And so like by the end of 2016, I was facing divorce. And so I was like, God, what is going on? Like, I don't understand why you have me in this place. And the one thing that held me together was a community of good girlfriends. We all decided back then, group me was like really popping. So we had a group me and we all came together. And I don't even know if they know this from today, but they helped me with my foundation of God, because we decided to take on each day and create a like a devotional or Bible study. So even though I had my thoughts of like, ooh, God, forget you, or like, God, you don't love me, like, you can put me through all these things and still love me, that kind of held me. So, a group of community helped me, as well as group therapy. At the time, my mom, when she was diagnosed with cancer, she passed away through Hospice of the Valley. And Hospice of the Valley, they give you a whole year of grief therapy. So you could go to different sessions for a whole year. So decided to go to group therapy. And even though I was the youngest one, I was the only Black female too. But there was a lot of women that had lost their husbands because they had been married for years. And so I found myself like maybe at the fourth or fifth month of going, of like actually encouraging others about their grief journey, like, oh no girl, you're gonna be all right, just keep on going. And I was like, okay, why do I feel so good when this is happening? But like I'm being able to relate to them, but then I feel good about it also. And so I was like, it's nothing. And so when you are dealing with a sudden grief, sometimes you do have what I call grief attacks.
Mm.
And they're kind of like panic attacks, but it's just the overwhelming feeling of the grief just kind of puts you into like this dark, deep dark, deep place, like in your soul. Like you feel this. I literally felt like my heart was aching because it was just like so much to consume at the same time. And I remember walking into my bathroom, closing the door, shutting the door, and just like crying. And I remember God was like, um, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's all I could hear is I'm with you. I'm with you. And so I was like, okay. And I just started praying. And then after that, God was like, or no, I was like, wow, thank you, God. I was like, I wonder about the people that don't know you. Like, how would they handle a situation like this? Like, lost people that don't know or have a relationship with God. And then that's when God was like, you're going to help those people. And I was like, no. So I got up, I stopped crying, girl. I wiped out my tears. I was like, nope, I don't want to do it. That ain't me. I can't. And so ever since then, God has just been like placing stuff on my heart, putting people in my life to help. So I'm just like, so that's what motivated me to be a life coach is just my personal journey until now. So yeah.
Wow. First of all, congratulations for making it through all the things. When you said, and y'all, I've heard pieces of this story, but just hearing it again, when you said like I had a Job year, you wasn't playing. Like that is a lot of loss for one person over a lifetime, let alone over a year.
Yeah.
That is a lot of loss. And so one of the things that stands out to me in your story that y'all hear me harp on this all the time, is having a good support system. And whether that's professional, so you went to the group therapy, or that's personal, so you had your girlfriends. There is just so much to be said about having a good support system. And sometimes it may be a professional that you might have to pay and you may have to sit on their couch. And sometimes you may have friends that'll, sit on the floor and cry with you. So congratulations again, just for surviving 2016. So you also said something that really stood out to me, was in the midst of your healing, God was like, I want you to do something with this pain. And that's something I talk about even with my journey after going through 3 divorces. And I was like, God, I'm done. And he's like, oh, no, you're not. Like, if I'm going to, it was almost like God was saying, if I'm going to put all this in you to be healed, like, I
Mhm.
need you now to pour into other people.
Right.
And so, like, that moment, like you said, on the floor where you're like, wait, what? You want me to do what? Do you not see that I'm healing here? You want me to help other people? But I do believe that there is power in turning our pain into purpose. And
Mhm.
I do believe that one of the ways that we turn our pain into purpose is to help someone else.
Mhm.
So thank you for the work that you're doing to help other people. So now at this point, you're just like, God, what am I supposed to do with this? So, and you didn't pursue like the therapist route, you pursued life coaching. What made you gravitate to life coaching?
Well, the thing was when God presented me to me that he wanted me to go through this path, I was just kind of like, I don't know if it's like really my personality at the time. I was just really into singing and ministering that way. And that was easy for me. So I was like, I don't know if this fits me. So um I didn't really like how therapy felt. It just felt like you were just digging into your past, like trying to find out all of the trauma and digging that up and then not knowing what to do with it. I also felt like I was at a place where I was like, okay, I have a strong foundation in God. I need to have a forward moment, like forward moving person to help me. And I didn't know that's what a coach actually does. So It was a while. I didn't really step upon coaching until about a year and a half ago when I found out. I don't know if you know about this social media guru. He's called Jay Shetty.
Yes.
Yes, so I found him and I was like, wow, I really loved his movement of how he approached people, because he approached it as if we are already completely healed
Mhm.
and we're just learning how to navigate through life. And that's what a life coach does. They help you personally. They don't tell you what to do, they just guide you in the right way for your own personal journey, so that you can be the best that you can be. And so that's what I felt what grief is, because, you know, I really didn't process the grief of my divorce until like 3 years after, you know, my mom died or after the divorce, because within my different losses, I compared them. I
Mhm.
was like, oh no, my mom's death is way important than my divorce. Like, I could put divorce, I don't even really need to worry about that. I don't really need to heal. It is what it is. And not knowing that it was still built up. But the beautiful thing about God is that he allows you to put things on the shelf and be like, okay, we'll come back to it, but I'm going to bring it back down. I'm going to take it off the shelf for you and present it. Oh, you're not ready yet? Okay, put it back up. So it's like just a beautiful healing journey with God. And so, you know, that brings me back to the reason why I wanted to coach, because just because it really doesn't hurt anymore doesn't mean that it's not affecting you still. And so, we all go through, it's been 7 years since my mom has died. And I still feel, sometimes I feel like it's even worse than when it first initially happened, just because, when good things happen, it's like you want to tell them, and when bad things happen, you want to tell them, or like simple things of, should I buy this car, should I, you know do this. It's like you're there, so involved in your life, um forever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. You said something about just the grace of God, of just saying, like, I know you need to deal with this, but I know you're not ready.
Yeah.
And Him being gentle enough to say, I'm going to wait until you can handle this. One of the things that I truly believe about our journeys in life, no matter how hard those moments are, I truly believe that those moments are happening because God was like, okay, you can handle this moment now.
Yeah.
You couldn't have handled
Yeah.
it 5
Yeah.
years ago. Because you'd be like,
Yeah.
God, why am I going through this right now? And He's like, because you can handle this now, because you can take it now, because this won't break you.
Hmm.
So man, that thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your journey, and how you got to this place. One of the things that I love about being a life coach is also the forward motion, right? Is helping
Yeah.
people to get excited about their future and plan for their future. And there is a space, let me say this, y'all, there is a space for therapists and counselors. I have been to them when I needed to pull up those roots and dig, back and figure out, how I got to some places. But like you, I just get invigorated when I talk to people about their future and helping them to dream again and plan again and start their life again and new relationships and, all those things. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing the work that I love to do as well. So I want to talk about kind of the process, right? So we know that there is no standard grieving process. And we just, you just said how, um, everyone kind of grieves their own time. But what does walking through the grieving process with someone look like?
Ooh. Ugh, that's hard to say, just because every person's journey is different. Um, and I think you just have to be more conscious or aware of, um, maybe unsettled feelings,
Mm.
or even just patterns like, okay, I'm doing really good. I told myself I was not going to drink for, I'm done with drinking. Let's just say I'm done with drinking. And then, you know, I I'm good for 2 months, and then not knowing in the back of my head, next week is my mother's death anniversary. All of a sudden, I'm like trying to drink. I'm trying to go out. I'm trying to do this. And it's like, okay, look at your kind of like your patterns. Like if you're doing really, really good and going on a right path, and then something kind of like tips you off, it's like, okay, I'm feeling these feelings of grief. Let me try to acknowledge them. Let me try to not suppress them with drinking. Let me try to be more vocal with my brother and or my sister-in-law instead of trying to party. So that's just an example of walking with somebody in grief. Nobody is going to get it perfect. Not all the time are you going to notice that you're grieving
Yeah.
until that moment where you're like breaking down and you're like, wow, I miss this person, or wow, you know I saw somebody get married and that was supposed to be me this year, and it didn't happen because I broke up with so and so, or if you had surgery and you can't walk anymore, you grieve your leg because it's like, wow, you see somebody running, you're like, well, I can't do that. And so it's like different things, it just depends on the circumstance. I do remember when my mom first died, we had to remove everything out of her apartment. And my brother was like, get it out. He was just going for it. And I was like, no, I want to keep everything. And so I was so mad at him because I was like, you have no feelings at all. Like, you don't care about mom. Like, and it was just the different ways we were grieving. He was like, I don't want to see it. And I was like, I want all of it. I want to keep it for myself, which is not good either. So I don't think there's a right answer to that, April. I just think that, with if you want to help somebody that is grieving or just had lost a loved one, you know, be able to be present for them when they do want to express and talk, um, and just listen, and not try to control how they feel or control their grieving. It's kind of like you're just there to help and guide them along the way with, saying, you can't necessarily even say, I know how you feel, because you don't. But you can say, you know what? I'm here for you. I'm here now. You can ask, what can I do to help you? Sometimes when we ask people, what can I do to help you? Then they have to sit back and really think, like, wow, what can you do? And then once that gives them the power to say, okay, well, you can, do this or whatever. So I think, supporting somebody in grief is definitely important as well, because um pent up grief and depression can lead to outbursts of like anger. You could cuss one of your family members out and be like, wow, I don't even know why I did that. And it's like, because you haven't processed so and so 10 years ago. Or the way that life happens, where everybody's going to deal with somebody passing away. And so sometimes you might deal with a loved one dying 5 years, and then 2 years later somebody else passing, like your best friend, and that brings up the old grief that you still haven't dealt with, or you suppressed.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, a lot of us, having taken the time to understand grief, is that it is so, I don't want to use the word haphazard, but it's so unexpected
Yeah.
sometimes. You brought up an example about the leg. So my daughter, who plays basketball, she's been playing basketball for 7 years. She tore her ACL beginning of this year, 2023, and she ended up having to have surgery. Well, we were prepared for the physical healing
Mhm.
of her leg. Okay, you're going to have surgery. We're going to go through physical therapy. We were prepared for the natural progression of healing. What we weren't prepared for was those moments of grief. Her not being able to travel, her not being able to be on the court. And even now, at the recording of this podcast, she still isn't clear to play. And it's the beginning of basketball season. And so, one of the things that I talked to her about was, hey, you might feel some feelings when these games start and you have to watch everyone else on the court and you can't be on the court. And the other thing that we didn't realize was how much that situation changed our life. When we suffer a loss, I think the immediate focus is on the loss of that person, whether it is someone dying, whether it's is a divorce, um, you know,
Life
a
change.
bodily function, life change. We focus on the immediate of what's happening. What I don't think we focus on as much is how much our life will change and how to deal with that because of the loss. So
Mhm.
for us, once again, it wasn't just, oh, you got to go through surgery, but basketball, I mean, basketball was 6, 7, sometimes 7 days a week for us. So now it's like, what do we do with that time?
Right.
And now we have all this extra time to feel and to think about what you can't do. And now we have to think about what you can do and think about getting you back on the court. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I when we hear the word grief, I think we gravitate to the loss of someone's life, but grief can come from just about the loss of a pet, the loss of a job. I went through a job transition this year. And so about 3 months ago, I was like, what am I feeling? I don't understand what I'm feeling. And I don't know if it was talking to you or someone else, but I realized that I was in a grieving season because so many things in my life were changing.
Mhm.
So, when someone is in those positions, whether it is a grieving season, maybe like you said, something happened 5 or 10 years ago and it's coming back up, what are some of the things that people can do when they are grieving?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is having a grief buddy. I call it a grief buddy. And it could be a numerous of things. It could actually be a physical person to where you can find somebody that kind of relates to what you've been through, or just a person that has a really good listening ear. Um, and or you could either journal. I know some people can write out things and say, this and this and this is how I was feeling today. And it doesn't necessarily have to be every single day that you write in this journal. It could just be when you have those feelings and you just need to get them out. Um, Reaching out to, I believe, your mentor or your pastor, um, for guidance on how to handle how you feel. Um, and then, especially grief groups, like in person grief groups, are wonderful. They just, it helps to know that you're not the only one thinking in a certain way. That because sometimes when we are in grief, sometimes those depression thoughts are so deep, you're like, I gotta be crazy.
Yeah.
Like, this can't be normal. Like, I need to get some serious help. And sometimes you do. Sometimes people with clinically depression, they do have to have medication and faith and friends and all of this just to be a better person. And that's okay too. But, you know, processing, grief is, very important. And so I just think that if you are in that place, just find someone to reach out to that you trust. Not anybody that's going to go back and tell somebody else how you felt about a certain about that loss. But yeah, those would be my like main tools for somebody that is in a place like that. Um, there's a lot of, people that do help and help you express, finding out where you are in your grief journey if you are still in shock. Like, oh, wow, I am still in shock that this even happened to me. I can't, it's overwhelming. I'm stuck in that place. Let's work on that. Let's work on why you're shocked. Let's work on, some more positive things that you could think of to get you out of that place. So, yeah.
Yeah. Those are all good. My favorite one, and I talk about this as well, is there's a difference between isolation and solitude. We all need moments of solitude. Jesus took moments to be by himself. We all need those moments of solitude, of rest, maybe to spend time with God, to spend time with ourselves. But I think it gets dangerous when we move over into isolation. And isolation is where we are completely cutting off the world and we're not letting anyone in. And so you hit the nail on the head there, is that I love that you start off with a buddy, right? Someone who can say either A, I've been in this position, or I may not have been in that position, but I understand the feeling. I
Yeah.
understand the sadness. So it may not have been the death of a loved one, it could have been the death of a pet. But in any case, I understand where you're at. And there's just so much that comes from being able to share with people that we trust, right? Being able to get it out and to let it out and to talk through it. So that's why I love that you're doing the work that you're doing, is because someone like Leah is perfect. Maybe you don't have that buddy. Maybe you don't have a spiritual advisor. Maybe you don't have a BFF or anyone who really understands. But someone who does the work that Leah does can say, hey, I understand. I've been there. I've been there a couple times. So Leah, I just want to say thank you again. Like I said, this is just an area that I believe we all have experience, but sometimes we don't understand what it looks like, maybe some of the things that we should do, and having someone to relate to us. So, Leah, tell everyone if they want to get in contact with you, if they're like, look, I need a buddy, I need a life coach in this area, I'm experiencing some grief and I don't know what to do. How can someone connect with you?
You can connect with me. I just changed my platform to when the time comes. So that is my new platform. My social media is Miss dot Leah Leah. It's part of my last name. So Miss Leah Stee. You can reach me there. And yeah, those are the two places.
Awesome.
So
And that information is going to be in the show note, guys. So if you check that out, you'll be able to connect with her. So I do want to ask you this question because I remember talking to you about the name of your platform. And I feel like there's just so much that goes into a name, but her platform is When the Time Comes. So share with us a little bit about how you chose that name.
Um, okay, well, my first name for my company was Survivor's Journeys. So I think at the place and time I was, I really felt like I really wanted to survive. Like I'm a survivor. That's what comes to my mind. So I was like Survivor Journeys, like it's a journey. So um, but now I changed it to be when the time comes because grief has no timetable. It's not like a linear line. And there's always going to be a time where depression might come up or anger might come up. There's going to be a time where you're going to have to help maybe somebody else. There's going to have to be a time where you want to express your love to the loved one that has died, so you're going to do something to memorialize them. It's just a overall different types of times in your life that might come or for somebody around you. And so that was the reason why I decided to change it. That I'm really excited to see how it's just gonna bless other people and get other people's attention, to be more aware of just processing grief, not suppressing it, noticing that it doesn't just have to be a loved one that died or a pet that died, or it could be numerous of things, and that everything that you've lost or that you feel has changed, that God still has a plan for you. And his plans are concrete. And so that's what you can trust in. And so, yeah.
I love it. So, all right, y'all, look out for more from Leah Stevenson when the time comes. I am just excited to know this amazing woman. I'm excited to see her grow. I'm excited just for the work that she's doing. It is much needed. Like she said, when she went through her grieving journey with the group, she was the only one who looked like her, sounded like her. And so I think that our community, the Black and Brown community, we need more people in this space that we can talk to and lean on. So Leah, thank you so much again for the work that you're doing.
Thanks. It's a privilege, it's a blessing, it's an honor to even come this far. And thank you for the opportunity for me, you know, telling my story, getting myself out there, and letting people know that it's okay to grieve.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you again, Leah. For those of you guys who once again join me for the first time, thank you, thank you, thank you for listening to or watching the Divorce Remix podcast. For those of you who continue to stay on this journey with me, thank you for coming back. So I'm super excited to see what the future holds for Divorce Remix, for Leah, for me, for all of you guys. And until we meet again, I want you guys to get out there and create a life you love.